Welcome to the ThunderCast, your martial athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and Jed Horton. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here, because the ThunderCast is on the loose.
Welcome back to another episode of the ThunderCast. Russ Livingood here, and with me every week, Jed Horton. Jed, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. It's been a busy week, a lot going on, but it's good to be kind of get that behind us. And now we're here to discuss some things in the world of martial athletics, and glad to be back this week.
And there are plenty of things we're going to talk about in 5 things, as you'll see here in a minute. Before I get started, I want to say hit the like, subscribe, follow, whatever kind of buttons if you're on your favorite audio streaming platform, or if you're on YouTube watching the video version. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. And you can also catch KD running our Twitter handle over on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. He does a great job of sharing things over there, commenting, interacting with fans. But we've got a very busy week, and we're going to get right into it with a word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Found them at 304carwreck.com.
Jed, I flew solo last week. You and I had some scheduling issues. I had to cancel on you because of a big green event. And then when you and I tried to get together, neither one of our schedules were very good. So I ended up putting out a quick solo episode, and it was a little bit later than we normally do. So you would think, are we going to have enough things for 5 things? Yes. As we have proven over and over again, there is always something going on in martial athletics. And instead of 5 things this week, we are going to hit you with 9 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by ignite.link. And now, here are at least 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by ignite.link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. All right, Jed, this just came out. I think it was earlier today. But now, number 1, all martial athletics venues are 100% cashless. This includes the ticket office, concessions, food trucks at any events that they're at, and the team store at the stadium.
I get it. I do. All right. I get why, and most people are paying via credit card or tap to pay. Personally, I use my phone or my watch because, I've got the tap to pay stuff. And I get, so for me, that's convenient, right? I'm not going to have to worry about, am I going to keep, some cash in my wallet? But I also know that there are a lot of people that still like to use cash. And I've not seen the buzz on social media to hear the pros and the cons. Maybe you've seen some of it. I haven't yet, but I'm sure it's not going to go over well for everybody.
There's a bunch of blowback. There's some pushback on it, and some I don't like it, and some they'll never get another dime from me sort of stuff. And I kind of sometimes shrug that off, sometimes get a little upset when I hear people say that. Look, I understand if something's not convenient for you or not convenient for several different people or things like that. But just the absolute way of the world anymore is it is getting pretty scarce to find people everywhere you go, man. They want to have just an iPad or, some kind of touch screen or something where you can pay and go. And here's the deal. Let me advocate for them going cashless. Let's take football alone. You take every single concession. You take all the different kiosks that are outside on the concourse that are not in the concession booths. And you have somebody has to go around and start, just like these are individual restaurants, and give them a petty cash drawer. They have to have a cash drawer there, and they have to go get that, and they have to have a certain amount of quarters. They have to have a certain amount of dollars. They have to have a certain amount of fives. Somebody comes in early in the game and says, "Oh, all I've got is this 100," and then if you only started with 100, your cash drawer is gone. There are, I think, 3 on each side, so at least 6, but there might be 4, might be 8 different places, plus all the different kiosks around there. And then you've got the food trucks outside. And you've got somebody, every time that they have to do that, they're supposed to be taking their gloves off, take your cash, either wash their hands, put gloves back on to grab your food, or one person is totally taking care of food and one person is running your register, and they can't touch both without washing their hands or going and getting different gloves. You have to worry about what happens at the end. Someone has to count all that cash and everything, and they have to account for it. You might get wrong change by somebody there, and it's a mistake because they're trying to take care of 3 or 4 people at the same time, and that holds everything up. It is massively inconvenient, and then somebody has to take that and run to the bank and all that, and take all of it together. It's much easier to go cashless. I get that it's an inconvenience for somebody, but it's not like you're going there and finding out at the venue. They're announcing it right now. Right. If you go to a place, and by the way, since it has opened, baseball has been cashless. Mm-hmm. Since it has been open. Now it's just every other sporting event venue is going to be cashless as well. So if you're at the CAM, if you're at the Vet, if you're at the Joan, all of those are cashless. Use your card. Everyone's got a debit card. I've seen people online say, well, I'm not going to use a credit card for a $6 transaction. Well, hopefully you have a bank card that works the same as a check or cash from your bank, and you can use a debit card. And it's not going to charge you an interest fee on your $6. It's done in the spirit of convenience overall. I've seen a lot of concerts do this. I've seen sporting events around the country do this. I think that I'm for it because it's a necessity to streamline some things. And I get why some people are upset with it. It's right down here at Russ Living Good. You can tell me how much of an idiot I am because you only carry cash. But trust me, if you come in with 100 or if you come in with a 50 and I'm waiting on them to count out $48 for you that you got your cup of ice for $2 or a hot dog for $4 or whatever they cost now, I'm in the line going, man, can't they just pay and go? Now, I also have seen a lot of people say that we need to improve the Wi-Fi infrastructure over there because that is a delay on these card transactions. And that is a very valid. It's hard to do just about anything at the stadium, anywhere that you gather a whole bunch of people like that because everyone's using the Wi-Fi on there. So I really, really hope that is upgraded or something that it won't drag it around. But they do it over at baseball. We'll see how it is at football, which is a lot more people. But just know they are telling you in plenty of advance notice it's going to be 100% cashless over there.
Well, and that's why, too, just as another positive, like you said, if the internet over there is good enough for those transactions to be quick, those are a lot faster than cash transactions. And I know most people anyway were already doing that, but you get a lot of people in line, at halftime or at the end of a quarter, you got 20, 30 people in line. Those extra 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds of trying to count out cash, adds to that wait time. Now, I think there are some other ways and other things that need to be done to speed up concessions, but that is a way to speed up concessions, especially if those payments can be processed immediately at the moment of, whenever you order your concession. So I totally get it. I just also know that, us West Virginians and, Marshall fans are a fickle bunch sometimes. So figured there'd be a little bit of blowback.
Yeah, and there is, but here's the thing that I've also noticed. When anything new is announced, there's an initial pushback and everything. Mm-hmm. And then once it just becomes the norm, like if they were to change that and they said, hey, now we're going to start accepting cash, there would be blowback and pushback on that. it's just whatever becomes the norm you get used to. And if
For sure.
anybody out here that's watching or listening is a cash only person, I'm going to tell you, this is not only at Marshall University. You're going to run into places that don't have this.
Right.
You're going to run into it, and it could be right here in Huntington that don't accept it. And this is just something. Hopefully, everybody has a debit card from their bank because it works the same way a check would or taking cash out would. You do not have to get finance charges on your transactions. Number 2, softball has 3 new hires. Assistant coach Riley Blampied, I hope I'm saying that right, Blampied, comes to us from South Carolina as a player there. Pitching coach Drew Calloway, he's been at Arizona. And then grad assistant Olivia Bruno. So lost some coaches at the end of the season, some coaches moving on. And we picked up 3 others. So welcome to the Herd softball.
Yeah, welcome to the Herd. Like you said, there were some holes. I was glad to see those get filled, and excited to. I know we're definitely a ways away. We're talking football, soccer. We're getting those sports ramped up, but always good to go ahead and get a little bit of a head start. And softball's already. This is their off season. They're working hard and they're getting ready for the spring. So welcome to the Herd.
Former Herd softball announcer, voice of Herd softball for many, many times. I know that he was over 1,000 games called, but Scott Hall on Twitter, he has an encyclopedic knowledge of all things Herd softball and games that he has called. And he called one of the games for Riley, our new assistant coach, and he recalled what she had done, how many RBIs that she had, doubles that she hit, things like that. And he said, we're getting a good one. So I'm going to defer to Scott Hall because he knows more about Marshall softball than probably more than I would say. If there's anybody that knows more than him about the history of Herd softball, it's got to be, you can count them on one hand. So I'm going to defer to him and say we're getting a good one per Scott Hall for assistant coach. I also saw somebody that is familiar with Drew Calloway say that we've got a really good pitching coach coming. And just, not familiar with Olivia Bruno as grad assistant, but we're going to be familiar with her. We're going to get to know them all. Number 3, single game football tickets are on sale. Big Green members and season ticket holders have been able to purchase at a discount since Wednesday at 8 a.m. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But the general public, starting at 8 a.m. on Friday, we're recording here on Thursday night. Not sure when you're watching this, but you can get your single game tickets. Jed, I'll get your comments on that, and then I've got a little bit of something about the 2-day early for the Big Green.
Yeah, so now's your opportunity to grab tickets. You've put it off on season tickets. You've put it off on the mini game plans. You've put it off. Now you can get your single game tickets. So yeah, if you haven't had your chance yet, pick them up. Grab them and support the Herd.
Let's talk real quick about the Big Green and season tickets, getting that 2-day early window. Hopefully this is yet another reason that will convince you to be a Big Green member. For as little as $5 a month, you get all the Herd perks, discounts that we talk about all the time. It's a tax write-off. Consult your tax professional. It is easy to get that money back through those discounts and everything, but you get discounted tickets and you get early window for it. So let's say there was a hot ticket item that you really needed to get tickets for. You would have had 2 extra days to do this, and they're going to be cheaper just because you're a Big Green member or a season ticket holder. You don't even have to be a Big Green member. As long as you're a season ticket holder, you could get these tickets a couple days early. They are cheaper, but getting the single game, even at the discount, nowhere near as cheap as the season tickets that you can get through the family pack. Mm-hmm. Those are $99 per seat with a minimum of 4. If you got 5, you can still do that. If you got 6, you can still do that. But a minimum of 4 for $99 a seat is a lot cheaper than these individual ones. And you look at any 3 games to get the mini plan, it is still cheaper to go that route than it is to get these tickets on the single game. But if you're only going to be here for 1 game, you're only going to be here for 2 games, or if you just don't like saving money by getting the season tickets or the mini plans, by all means, Friday morning you can get your single game tickets. Get them now. Don't wait to walk up to the stadium. Don't wait to hope that somebody gives you a free ticket as you're around the tailgate areas without a ticket. Just get them now. If you know that you're going to be there, support Tony Gibson, support the herd. Let's make this what is already a record season ticket sales on the season. Let's make this even more of a record and buy some more tickets in August.
Absolutely.
Speaking of football, number 4, the new deck at the Shuey building has a name. The naming rights has gone through, and it will be known as the Dutch Miller deck. Securing that helps what was already an attractive situation for Marshall athletics and herd football to have this, because of the way that the Thunder Trust and the NIL deal was going to be handling this. That is now even more attractive because we have naming rights, which will offset a lot of the cost.
Yeah, which is great. And those, and when you buy those seats or buy those passes, that money is going to the, like you said, the Thunder Trust. That's to the NIL. That's not
NIL.
Big Green. That's a different. Big Green obviously covers the scholarships. It's the that fund. This is the Thunder Trust, which is it's going to support the NIL. Which we've talked about episode after episode after episode that in this world of NIL, there's needs to be some money that can go to these players to get them here. We're not paying out $1 million deals to quarterbacks or running backs or anything like that, but we are. I think it is appropriate, and kids do deserve to get some money. Yeah. And in this competitive landscape, especially in the Sun Belt, we've got to have those funds, and this is a great way to support the herd in that fashion while getting those perks of spending that money. You get the unlimited food and the drinks, right? You get
top shelf food and drinks.
Top shelf food and drinks. You've got that second level seating, or second level the deck or the standing room area where you can go out at the end zone at that little bit higher level, so you get a little better view. You've got the seats on the field. You get field level access.
Sideline passes.
And sideline passes. To be on the field and experience game day from that location. And on top of it, you're given that money that will then be used for NIL to go to players. So, and this is great. It's an affordable way to get what I would call, suite level access as well as field level access all in one go. For not the high premium price tag. And Russ, I mean, there's a line. There's a waiting list for the main suites, on the sidelines there. And this is a way for you to get access to that kind of more premium seating at a little bit lower price, individual tickets, but you get that field level access as well. So it's definitely a really, really good deal, and it goes to add money to the Thunder Trust. And then again, thank you to Dutch Miller, to step in and buy those naming rights to help with the cost of that. So those, so more of the ticket money that we spend goes to that. It goes to, ends up in the hands of a player.
Yeah. And just one other little caveat, actually 2, you also get a parking spot for every 2 that you get. So like if you're only getting 1, you get a parking spot. If you're getting 2, you still only get 1 parking spot. You get 3, you're getting 2 parking spots. So you get that, you don't have to pay for that, and you get the food is going to be, as I understand it, things are still being worked out on contracts and things like that. Those will be announced. I don't want to speculate, but I have been told that it is not going to be from the concession stand, that the food is. So you've got indoor and outdoor. The outdoor part is you're standing out there, and you can watch, you can take the game in. If it's raining, cold, too hot, whatever, you can go back inside. There will be restrooms in there. There will be the food and drink in there. If you want to go down to field level where the seats are, you just walk right down there. If you want to go on the sideline, you go over there. You got a free parking spot for going to this game. And all this goes, yes, to NIL, but it's not just NIL for football. So you are actually helping all athletes because they are sharing this NIL revenue that is coming in. So this will help soccer. It will help softball. It will help baseball. It will help swim and dive, basketball. Everybody will benefit from this. Number 5, volleyball tickets are on sale now. $50 for courtside seats for the entire season. Must be a Big Green member at the $150 level to get those courtside seats. But if you're already a $150 giver, donor, you can pick those up for $50. And then all other seats, $40 for general admission, or you can get a family 4-pack for only $25 each, $100 total. So if you're going to get 2 tickets, you're going to spend $80. If you're going to get 4 tickets, you're only going to spend $100. So you and your family can go pretty cheap. I'll go over the schedule here very, very, very briefly right after you tell me how everyone should take their family over and support softball. I mean, not softball, volleyball.
Yeah, especially for that price level too. So it's very, very affordable to get your season tickets. It's a fun environment. You're indoors, especially if you've got, like Russ and I both have daughters. Mm-hmm. It's a great sport that they enjoy to watch. It's a great sport for anybody to enjoy and watch, but especially for daughters, because if you have kids that, play the sport or eventually want to play the sport, and it's just a fun time, to go and support volleyball. So, and especially at that price, go get your tickets. Even if you think you're only going to go to a handful of games, for that price, go ahead and grab them and support the herd.
Yeah, because here's where it's at here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different home games. So for $25, if you're getting that family 4-pack, each seat that you're going to take up, $25 for 16 games, you can't beat that. I'm assuming that they're going to be roughly $5 if you go get an individual. Yeah. So if you take your family, it's going to take a family of 4. You're going to be spending $20 every time you go, versus you could be spending $6, a little bit, 6 to 7. But anyway, volleyball, go support them. It's a great time. Play music and have lights show around there. They got that new floor. Looks pretty cool in there. Having girls, yes, they enjoy it. My daughters love to go over there. They play volleyball, recreationally and go to the camps and everything, and they like it. So they enjoy going over and watching the girls play as well. All right, number 6, lots of academic success here on these next ones. And we're going to start off number 6, tennis. They land 8 on the ITA Scholar Athlete list, and the team is named an all-academic team. Here's those 8. Noor El Owazani, Sophia Hurion, Katie Labanen, Aisling McGrain, Alina Moskr. I always say this wrong, and I want to put the S before the K, but Makranskaya, Meredith Riley, Nell Van Hoot, and Emma Vanderhayden. 8 different players named Scholar Athletes. I want you to save the word because we've got a couple more of these to do. But how big is this to have 8 on your team make the scholar athlete list, which gets you all academic team overall.
That's fantastic. We talk about all the time the academic successes that our student athletes have, and it's constant. I mean, we're always talking about these things in the 5 things throughout the course of the year. And again, it goes to show that, when you're recruiting student athletes, you're not recruiting just athletes who are great at their sport, but athletes that are, killing it in the classroom as well, which speaks, to the quality of the person, right? I mean, you've got to be a very disciplined person to be able to show up to practice, to perform well in your designated sport, and then do well in the classroom, from studying, those late nights to be able to take that quiz or that test or finish that project and those kind of things. So, it speaks to the discipline and the quality of when you come to Marshall University. You're going to compete at a very high level. You're going to do very well. You're going to be surrounded by athletes that are going to help you do well and to win and to be successful there. But you're also, getting a great education, which again is, we always talk about, that's the point, right? You're here to get an education, to pursue a degree. So it's fantastic, and I love to see it, and I love to see that it's consistent. It's not a one-off thing or happening here and there. It is constant across multiple sports.
Yeah, and number 7, we're going to build on this. Volleyball awarded an AVCA Team Academic Award. That puts them in the top 20% of all teams, and there are a lot of volleyball teams in Division I. So I don't want you to repeat everything that you just said there, because all that applies there. So we're going to move on to number 8. And I'll tell you that all 4 squads that make up track and field cross country have been named all academic teams. 24, this is for spring 2025, 24 cross country track and field student athletes earned a 4.0.
Wow.
58 cross country and track and field student athletes earned a 3.0 or above. And here's what they did individually. Women's track and field got a composite 3.35. Men's track and field, a composite 3.3. Women's cross country, 3.57. And men's cross country, 3.37. So 58 of them getting and I don't know how many's on there, but it seems like that's pretty much the entire team.
Yeah.
Getting a 3.0 or above. And I don't know what gets you on the dean's list or the provost list or anything like that, or the honor roll, but 3.0 and above is good as a student athlete from where I'm standing. You got all the travel that we always have to talk about, every single thing that you just mentioned here, and all 4 of the individual teams that make up the entire program got above a 3.3 or above,
which is awesome. And you're talking about across different sports too.
Yeah.
I mean, in our 5 things, or 9 things, today is, you've got 3 sports, tennis, volleyball, and track and field, all receiving those academic honors. So I think it's safe to now say that this is a differentiator across all these sports and across, the university as a whole as it concerns its student athletes. It's a differentiator.
I was waiting on that word. It fits every time. It's a running joke on here, but it is a perfect word to describe it, because everyone wants athletic success, but they're here for academics, and that should come first. So it's always nice and refreshing to see. But I know the student athletes bust their butts to get these grades, and I know the parents of these student athletes enjoy hearing all the academic success that their kids are having, and their recruits that are getting ready to come to Marshall. We have some of those that watch and listen to the show, and I know that this is something that they care about as well. So it's just really, really, really cool. Number 9 and final thing is Fans First Day has been announced, and it will be Wednesday, August the 6th at Joan C. Edwards Stadium, and it will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. real quick, it will be all fall sports that will be there, not just football, which has been at least last year, but maybe the last 2 years. And then they will have autographs. They'll have posters. You can get photos with everybody. It's going to be a real good time. I've been there. I love taking the kids there. The kids love it. I see fans from all ages are enjoying themselves, and kids of all ages are there enjoying themselves. So if you want to go meet these athletes of the different things, you're going to have soccer, volleyball, basketball, definitely football there, and get over there 2 hours, make time for it, go meet these athletes.
Well, and it gets you really close to these athletes and get you that opportunity to see them as people, right? There are times when, especially when you're a fan, especially during football season, and kid drops the ball or misses a block, or it's easy to be in the heat of the moment to say some things, but these are kids, these are people, and they're here to be successful at Marshall and to bring success to Marshall in their respective athletic endeavors in their sport that they're in. But it's good to you meet them, you get a name, you can you remember the name, and then you support them, and it's and I think it's great. I think it's a great way to get that fan engagement at a level beyond just coming to a game and cheering them on. It gives you a little more to cheer for, I think.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Jed, I'm going to be there. Hopefully I'll see you there. I know that there's going to be a lot of people that watch and listen to this that are going to be there, and I look forward to seeing them there as well and enjoying these student athletes and getting to know them and supporting them. But that does it for our This Week 9 Things Every Herd Fan Needs to Know this week. As always, thanks to ignite.link.
All right. Yep. Thank you to ignite.link, and also thank you to Layer One that supports the Around the Herd segment of the show, which we're going to move into. So let's get a word from our sponsors at Layer One Solutions, and we'll talk about what we're doing for Around the Herd.
And now, Layer One Solutions, your experts in business connectivity infrastructure, takes you around the herd.
Typically, when we take it around the herd, we're usually going through the different sports and different things, what's going on. But this week, it's a little bit different. We're going to talk about just do more of a feature segment. We recently had Sunbelt Media Days, which is, it's a really, really big time here at Marshall and across the entire Sunbelt as a whole. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about how it all went down, and a little bit of the expectations and a little bit of the controversy, and talk about it a little bit. So I'm going to lead off with one of the main points that I think really kind of sticks in the craw of Marshall fans is Marshall was picked 5th in the East with 42 overall points and only 1 first place vote. So what are your thoughts, Russ, on that?
Well, number one is I want to know who out of the 14 coaches picked us number one. I like to think it was Gibby. I like to think Gibby, and I don't know if maybe they have rules that say don't select your own team. I don't know, but James Madison got 11 over in the East, got 11 of the 14, and then you had Georgia Southern got a first place. Coastal Carolina got a first place, and then Marshall got a first place. So that gave Marshall 14 of their 42 overall points, right there. Maybe it was, no, it's 7 probably of their 42. It's probably, yeah. So they got 7 of their 42 just based off of that alone. 42 points. The closest to them in the East is Old Dominion. Man, I said 5th on here on my notes, but looking at it, they're actually 6th. Marshall is 6th.
Okay, yeah.
I told you wrong. I put the notes together for this for us, and I'm looking here. Marshall got 6th in the East. Last year we were 5th. Hopefully that's what I'm trying to remember. And famously, we did not finish 5th. We won the division and then the conference. But how these work is the 14 coaches get together and they say, let's vote. And the West has 14 votes for first, and the East has 14 votes for first. The West only got 6 for Louisiana and 6 for Texas State, but James Madison was by far the favorite on the East Division. And I think that's pretty fair. And, as much of a Marshall fan and homer that I am, and you could probably put yourself in that category, and so could a lot of our listeners and viewers. But I think that it is fair that we would not be predicted to be first overall, second overall, maybe even third overall in the East. Middle of the pack, I think, is pretty fair, given the entire total roster rebuild that we're having to do. Now, we are extremely bullish on this roster and what we are going to do this year, but no one on here is saying 11-1, 10-2, 9-3, that sort of thing. I think 6 is a little low, but I do understand why the coaches went that far, because you're looking at such a rebuild.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. Unfortunately, to lack of their benefit, rather, the coaches don't watch the ever famous position group breakdowns done by the ThunderCast, which a new episode will be dropping this week. They see big roster turnover. You've got new coaching staff. It's just there's a lot of unknowns, and that's fair. And I agree with you there. That's absolutely fair. But to go from winning the Sun Belt to dropping near the bottom, basically the bottom. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that's a little, I think a little low, but I get it. I totally get it. There's just the unknown, so it's a safer bet when you're voting for that, for sure.
So let's talk here real quick about East versus West and overall. So if you look at just the points overall, Marshall is 12th out of 14. And the only ones below them is a significant drop-off after Marshall at 42 points goes all the way down to 24 points for ULM, and then 23 points for Georgia Southern. Or State. I'm sorry, Georgia State. That's low. Mm-hmm. That is real low for those two teams, and a significant drop-off. So you look there around, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After the top 5, you're looking at a spread on the next 6 through 12 of 50 points, 49 points, 48 points, 47 points, 43 points, 42 points. There's not a lot of difference in there. Mm-hmm. And, we've said that a lot is, somebody gets a second place vote instead of a fifth place vote. That's a huge swing that you might have seen us higher. In the East alone, after the top 3, which is James Madison at 94, Georgia Southern at 76, and App State at 60, Coastal's in there at number 4 at 49 points, Old Dominion's at 48 points, and we're at 42. You flip-flop a couple of those in the rankings, and we could have been right there, all 3 together. But the key that I want to bring up, and then I'll get your thoughts on this, is just because we are 12th out of 14 overall, the way the points go, that does not necessarily mean that if they didn't rank by where you would be in each division, that we would be the 12th overall out of 14 teams. We might finish ahead of a couple of teams over in the West, even though they have higher points than us, because they were just saying, here's where we think they're going to finish in the West. Here's where we think you're going to finish in the East. And I'm not jumping on board where a lot of people are saying, the West is trash and the East is the only thing that matters. I'm just saying that you don't know where these teams are actually lining up 1 through 14. You only know East and West because that's how the voting goes.
Well, and if you looked at it, like to your point, by just a few points, they're calling us middle of the pack.
Yeah.
It just so happened that we got the short end of the stick when it came to the votes, and we're at the bottom. So, which I think is I'm going to say fair, especially from from the coach's point of view, fair to say we have a lot of unknowns. I think Marshall's always been competitive historically. They're coming off a Sun Belt championship, and they kind of throw you right in the middle where it's kind of murky, right? They're not telling us we're the worst team in the conference, but they're not going to tell us we're the best team. Yeah, you're kind of floating around in there in no man's land, and we'll have to see how it pans out as the season gets underway.
Yeah. Now, break this down one final point here in talking about the East only. There is exactly 18 points between number 1 James Madison and number 2 preseason Georgia Southern. And there is exactly 18 points between number 3 App State and number 6 Marshall. So that tells you 3 through 6 are all kind of right there together. Yeah, there's a 18-point spread. I'm not saying that we're neck and neck with App State, but I'm saying we're as close to number 3 as number 2 is to number 1. So right now, just about everybody in the East is saying James Madison is the favorite. And then they're saying, Georgia Southern could make a run. And then definitely 4 through 6, is kind of like all around the same place. And I would like to tell you that every year that we've been covering this, I don't think the coaches have gotten it right in the preseason on anything. I would have to go back and look, but I don't think they predicted the order of finish on the East and West. I think Texas State was by far the favorite to win the West last year, and they did not. Louisiana won that. I think James Madison may have been picked first last year, if I remember correctly. And even though they and Georgia Southern both came close, they did not because we did, and we were picked 5th. So don't read too much into it. Basically, that's what we're saying.
Well, and again, the Sun Belt is, super competitive. I mean, that's the thing is it's such a competitive conference that week in, week out, it's a tall order for someone to run that gauntlet and not get a few bruises along the way, regardless of whether you are the preseason favorite. And even if you're stacked, even if JMU, and I don't know much about JMU's roster and what they've got going on this year, but even if they're stacked and it's theirs to lose, any given night, things happen. You fumble the ball too many times, you throw errant passes, it's football.
Check it out. In the East last year, we lost one game and we were up by 20 or 18 points or something like that. With about 5 minutes to go, and we had an epic meltdown to lose the game by 1 point. And that was our only loss. But going into the second half of that James Madison game, the last game of the season, if we didn't have the comeback that we had, we were going to have no chance at the East Division with 2 losses because we had one game earlier in the season we lost. So it just depends, man. If James Madison loses one early and other teams have a tiebreaker above them, it's going to be hard for them to do. Right. That's why it's such a gauntlet here in the Sun Belt, is because there is so much parity. We have a couple of teams that have struggled and finished, lower than the rest, but man, the middle and top of the divisions on both sides have been competitive every year that we've been in with these new 14 teams. Yeah,
Sun Belt teams are generally not dog walking each other.
Yeah.
Unless it's, again, like you mentioned, there's a couple near the bottom. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, it's not a thing where we're going in, week out, and just, putting 40 and, on teams and just, beating the snot out of them. These are close competitive games where comebacks happen, which makes them exciting. Also, keeps you on the edge of your seat. but that's what you get with this conference is you're not generally guaranteed games, and it's going to be a dogfight regardless of whether you're ranked 5th or you're ranked 1st. It's generally speaking, that's how that's working.
Yeah, we had a horrible 2023 and got blown out in several conference games and everything. We were 3-5 in the conference, and Coastal Carolina, who was one of the teams that blew us out, was 5-3. Had that game somehow we had not lost that game, both of us would have been 4-4.
Yeah.
So and they finished 3rd in the conference that year. It is a gauntlet. So don't read too much into it. Don't be too upset. But this is a little bit of bulletin board material that our locker room can see. Hey, they think that we're going to be 6th, and we're technically 12th out of 14 as far as overall points. So let's go show them.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of things there's some things that I wanted to, and I know you do as well, Russ, kind of want to go through that came out as part of the media days and things that were talked about. I think 2 big things to highlight was the fact that Toby Payne was named to be the preseason first team at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jalen Slappy, who got to make the trip, was named to the second team at offensive line. So I think those are 2 things I wanted to bring up before we jump into the other things. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I think that's a lot of great respect for Toby Payne. He was, I feel like, underused last year, but still came away with 6 touchdowns. Has everyone's attention going into this year as a redshirt junior. Everyone in the conference has shown him a lot of respect, and I think this reflects that the coaches have gotten together and said, this is the best tight end in the conference. Mm-hmm. I do think Jalen Slappy is a little bit better than second team. I think he, selfishly, I think he should be on the first team. But all these other coaches, there are 13 other teams that have 5 starters on the offensive line. So, I mean, that's 65 other players that he has to compete with. And for him to make second team, I think that is still respectable. Let's see where he ends up at the end of the year, because I'm hoping that we have one of those years that shocks some people and they say, hey, a strength was this offensive line, which maybe we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I hope that at the end of the year he can look back and say, nah, fam, second? Nah, I'm first.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it kind of goes with the theme of it again. The theme of kind of there's just been a lack of, there's definitely with him being named second team, definitely a little bit of respect given there, but a lack of respect on what the conference and what a lot of people think Marshall's going to be able to accomplish this year, and so just you're seeing that theme run through these awards and who gets what credit, and again you get the big roster turnover. I get that, a lot of unknowns, a lot of kids with maybe not a lot of history as far as their production and things like that. So I get it to a point, but the lack of love is definitely evident here, in my opinion.
So what are some other things that we kind of picked up here on Sunbelt Media Days? I'll say real quick that Commissioner Gill was asked about adding Louisiana Tech. He talked about their proximity. He talked about them bringing up basketball. He talked about how great they've been in baseball. Historically, they've had some good softball teams over the years. So obviously the driver, as we've talked about on social media, is football. And what have you done for me lately? Louisiana Tech hasn't done a whole lot, but we did shrink the conference footprint. We improved a couple of sports. I think the big key from this, when you hear what he was talking about, is they decided to get back to 14 as quickly as possible, because he said if we have to go a year, let's say they can't join us July the 1st of 2026 and they have to do it in 27, we have to go with 13. That year we can't do divisions in football, and one team will have to play 12 weeks in a row, the way that it works out. And some of the rivalries in the divisions, you may have to go without. They've already ran the schedules through the simulations. Hey, what would it look like if Louisiana Tech isn't here? And that's what it's spitting back out, is to make these things work with more conference cross-division play. Is there's going to be more travel for some teams. There's going to be no bye week for some teams because of the odd people out. It's going to be difficult, the way that they're going to have to do it. And I think that was a key driver of why they had to act so quick, because, if Conference USA makes them give 2 years notice, or else they're going to have to pay a much higher exit fee and, go without distribution for X amount of time. I think that is why we went so quickly to replace somebody so we could get back up, because Texas State will not be here in 2026. Yeah. They are, because it was before July the 1st, they are gone. That means that we have possibly 1 year next year of 13 teams. And if they do that, that opens up to where if you're playing more cross-division games, there's a decent chance that Southern Miss and Marshall would play in 2026 because of that.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that one. As far as I'll give you my real quick 2 cents on Louisiana Tech and that announcement. I know there was a lot of, and again, social media. So when I say there was a lot of not pushback or strong opinions, but there were very strong opinions in the world of social media, which we know is very, it may not be a complete picture of what's going on and how people feel across, the wide spectrum of the conference and everything. I'll be honest, it don't move them personally. It don't move the needle for me whatsoever.
Me either.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope they, they surprise us.
We have to hope that they do.
Yeah. Not to become competitive, but it's just historically over the last decade or so, what have they done that says, hey, we want them? Because there was a lot, not a lot, but there were several teams and a lot of push for, a couple of schools that would move the needle, right? Schools that have been higher up in their conference, have been successful in their conference, and bring value to certain sports, especially football. Again, that's the driver. That's the driver. That's what makes the money, right?
That's right.
That's what draws the eyes. That's what brings the most fans. And there were some teams that, we've all been eyeballing. We've all talked about, social media has talked about, and Louisiana Tech just wasn't one of those teams. Again, for me personally, being a fan of Marshall on the east side of the conference, not a big mover for me. But I'm hoping, man. I hope they pull it off and become successful. And again, like you said, for our conference sake, we have to be. It has to be, because
you have to hope that they elevate the conference and they turn football around. Yeah. You said the last decade, the first 5 years of that, they were doing really well, but the last 5, they've had 5 straight losing seasons, and they made a bowl game last year with a losing record only because we had to opt out of the bowl game because our coaches and players all left, en masse within a week. Which I don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's talk about some things that we do want to talk about. Coach Gibson said that we will go in with a full 105 on the roster. We're bringing in 72 new players. 54 of those are from the transfer portal, and 18 were high school signings. So 72 new players out of the 105. Most rosters used to be the 85, and we're going to carry the full 105. Now that the house settlement has been decided on. Jalen Slappy said this offensive line is the most cohesive he's seen since they've been there. And I want to talk about that real quick because we had a heck of a good line last year. Coach Cody Creel had them playing together very well. We have only been together over the spring and haven't even hit fall practice. And Jalen Slappy said, hey, we've had cohesion and good lines prior, but this is the best one for cohesiveness. I think that is a good sign.
I agree. Well, the game's won in the trenches, right?
Absolutely.
And if we're going to be, and we'll talk about this a little bit in just a minute, but if we're going to be a pretty run heavy offense,
yeah,
your offensive line has to be on it, because those gaps have to open, those blocks have to be made, for that to be successful. And Jalen Slappy's been here a little bit, and if I again would lean towards his comments and his wisdom there, that if he says this is a cohesive unit, more cohesive unit than in the past, obviously I'm going to listen and say, hey, that's only good for us.
Who's going to know better than him, right? He was a starter all last year, and he was a starter midway through the 2023 season. I think if anybody there is going to know, it's going to be him. Even the coaching staff. I mean, other than Ralph Street, no one else was here from 2023 for the entire time. Shannon Morrison was here in 2023, but he wasn't in 2024. But let's talk about, you said we're going to talk about it in a minute. One of the quotes that Coach Gibson said is, we're going to be a run-first team. He was talking about Rod Smith and his offense and, this offensive line and the running back room. He had some great things to say, and he said, we're going to be a run-first team. So I think that is in line with what we've been saying on our position group breakdowns. What we've been saying so far is we could see it 65-35 on runs, 60-40 on runs, but even 55-45 on runs. We're going to be run first. I don't think you're looking at 50-50. So I think it's going to be a little more run heavy. Quarterbacks, he said if he had to do right now, which is also in line with what we've been saying, is Carlos Del Rio Wilson would be your starter. If he had to play tomorrow and had to pick a quarterback for a game, it would be him. But he said Zion Turner's not far behind, and he gave a lot of praise and said also in the running is Ja'Kai Long, even though he's behind Zion in this theoretical pecking order of a hypothetical game for tomorrow. He said that he throws an amazing ball and is the future of this Herd offense. So I think that we're going to be pretty good with the way, Gibby doesn't do a lot of coach speak. I think he just kind of tells it how it is. So I think that should make people feel a little bit better about how we're looking. And that we're not going to be asking too much out of our quarterback if we're going to be a run-first offense in this Rod Smith offense. You got to be a game manager and make the throws when they count.
Right. Well, and that's good to see that there's a lot of competition. And again, I don't think he would say, especially about Ja'Kai Long, that if he's the future of the Herd, you're putting a lot of pressure on the kid. You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself as the coach if you're going to say something like that. So, I don't think he's going to speak out of turn like that if he doesn't really believe that, which means we've got our answer now for what we need now, but we've got, things coming up. We've got somebody coming up who can take more of a role in future seasons and things like that.
Yeah.
I
think that puts pressure on the first and second string quarterbacks as well when you're saying that this guy in the third, is really good. He might catch them. Fall ball is you've got a month pretty much. A couple other things before we get off here is Coach Gibson said that his team is hard workers, people that are dedicated. And that's going to be his team, and soft players that are lazy are just not going to be on the team. And both players, when he was at the podium, said that. Cam Smith, who was there, and Jalen Slappy, who was there, they both looked at him and they just nodded in agreement. Gibson said he's going to be a lot more involved on the defensive side of the ball because that's what he's familiar with. And he said he was asked several different times his involvement on the offense side of the ball, and he said nothing. So Rod Smith is going to do that. He said, here's what I know about offense, how to stop it. So he's going to be involved on the defensive side of the ball, and that's it. And finally, they start fall ball practice next Friday. And he said next Thursday they're going to run from the stadium up to the Spring Hill Cemetery and do the thing that they've done in the past for theirs. So, one more quote from him, and then I'll get some thoughts on everything from you. Is he said they were going up and down. The studio host was going up and down, saying, "Oh, you start with Georgia, and that's huge." And he was going over these other things, and all Coach Gibson would say, he said, the number one team we are worried about on the schedule is Marshall right now. So they're worrying about themselves. And I think it was refreshing to hear a lot of the stuff that he said. He pulls no punches. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. But he said the expectations at Marshall with the fan base and the history is to win and to compete, and he intends to compete for the conference championship.
Yeah, it's I don't know how to say this. Maybe vibe is the term, but there's just been a vibe about this coach and this team and the program and what it's going to be moving forward. We may not win a Sun Belt championship this year. It's hard to say what's going to happen this year, but there is a vibe, and it's being represented. For example, record season ticket sales, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like has been, kind of quiet, and it's not, it's not that there's a big loud parade of we're going to come in and, go. I don't know. It's been like this quiet vibe of, this is where we feel what Marshall is and what Marshall needs to be. And I don't know. I'll have to think of a better way to communicate it and verbalize it. But there's a confidence. There is a, things are moving in the right direction for this program as a whole, not just for this season. We hope it pans out this season. We hope that there's some little surprises along the way. But Gibby's here to win, and he's here to be successful, and these guys are here to work hard, and they're recruiting the players that have that mentality of working hard and to be successful. And nobody's gonna be a star just because of their talent. They're gonna be a star because they put in the work. And so there's a lot of these things that you just gotta. The best way I can say it's a vibe of the program has changed, not drastically, but it has changed. And there are things moving in a positive direction, and I think we're going to see some really, really cool things in the future.
Yeah. Jed, there was one thing that we did not put in the 5 things, a little bit late breaking that I wanted to wait for some confirmation on, but the official club has announced it. So now official is Obina Anachili Killen has signed to play professional basketball overseas in France in the Euro League.
Okay.
So he'll be going over there. Wanted to get that in so we didn't miss it. But other than that, Layer 1 Solutions took us around the herd, and it was a great talk about everything that was discussed at Sunbelt Media Days.
Yeah. Thanks to Layer 1, and I'm ready for football, Russ. I don't know about you. I'm ready for that tailgate, and I'm ready to get started.
I am too, but what you do need to know is whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Jack, or whether you see us at that tailgate, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go herd, it's the ThunderCast, and we'll see you very, very, very soon.